Hello, and welcome to LearnToCook.com. I'm Chef Mark. Welcome. Today we're going to be doing 3 great legumes and vegetables. They are a favorite of many people. Asparagus, both green and white. Then we'll be doing brown lentils. It sounds ordinary, but it can be very extraordinary the way we're going to prepare it today. And then our last item, it's a green, though sometimes we use it as a starch in restaurants or at home, would be couscous. So today we'll be doing how to cook asparagus, how to cook lentils, and how to cook couscous. This is not the instant, this is the regular couscous you buy in the store. It's the Northern Africa couscous. It's very tiny and small grain. So, having said that, one of the important things about asparagus is selecting it, of course, like any fresh vegetable. How is it stored in the supermarket? What does it look like? When I buy asparagus, look to see that the fronds are still attached, right? That's a good thing. I bought one with the fronds unattached. You can see the white asparagus. Some of the fronds are missing. So when you're going shopping, be mindful of the tips, right? The top parts of the white asparagus. What's the difference between the two? You may ask. Well, obviously, or maybe not obviously, one has been exposed to the sun, and of course, through that photosynthesis, it produces chlorophyll. I guess that's what it does, and it turns green. If you keep the asparagus small stalks as they shoot out of the earth, you mound those small asparagus and keep mounding them, well, it's white. No photosynthesis, no chlorophyll is developed, they don't turn green. Interesting enough, white asparagus were the rage for centuries until some British people said, well, we like green asparagus, we don't like the white. So the Brits were the ones that made the green asparagus popular, and strangely enough, or not strangely enough, it was Auguste Escoffier who encouraged the white French asparagus farmers to uncover them and to let them grow in sunlight. So asperge bruxelloise, today's preparation, asperge or asparagus polonaise. So it's a great preparation. Polonaise has chopped egg white, obviously cooked, chopped egg yolk, cooked, chopped Italian parsley or regular curly leaf parsley, and toasted breadcrumbs and some melted butter, salt and peppers. Nice preparation. You can do cauliflower polonaise, so do asparagus polonaise. Or you can do lemon butter, or just, when you cook them, have them room temperature. They're a great room temperature vegetable to cook, to serve. Just some balsamic vinegar on there, raspberry vinegar, or your choice, and serve the room temperature, and just eat them like that. They're great. Also, when you're buying asparagus, is to make sure the bottom's pretty decent, condition. They're not dark brown and all shrunken and shriveled and busted up and dark damaged color. So, relatively fresh asparagus. We seem to get them in most parts of North America year-round now. If it's winter in North America, they come from South America and shipped backwards and forwards. So, nice bunch of green asparagus. You can get the jumbo asparagus. I have some water on to boil while I'm chatting, so I'll cook the asparagus in there. Jumbo asparagus, nice to have. They have more flavor. They're meatier, they're more mature. These are just as fine, just you need more. Jumbo asparagus are a very popular vegetable in steakhouses because they're nice and big. You can actually grill jumbo asparagus. I just put salt and some olive oil and put them on the grill, the barbecue grill. Just be careful they don't fall through, right? Put them off center. They can be grilled. You can grill them, but they're so delicate and small, they can get overcooked very easy. So I like to cook the jumbo asparagus. So the water's simmering. I have some twine. I have my bunch of asparagus I bought at the supermarket. To make life easy, if all the fronds are evenly, I will just cut off the woody ends in one fell swoop, right? So those woody ends I've cut off in one cut. What I can do with those, boil them later on, puree them. For what? Asparagus soup. So save those. They freeze well. You want to cook them, puree them, freeze them. You have some extra yield right for the cost of your asparagus. They'll be packed in rubber bands. So what I like to do is remove the rubber bands. Of course, I might save those as well. And just be careful I don't snap off those fronds. I'll separate these into two. Now, depending on how woody or tough, of course, it's cellulose that's in vegetables that we try to, break down by simmering so it's tender. Depending how tough that is, I might not have to peel it. Now, some people in particular, they want those little purple fronds cut off there. You can do that if you want. Is anybody going to notice? They might. They might not, right? With this Polonaise topping, chopped hard-cooked egg whites, egg yolks, chopped parsley, and breadcrumbs, it covers it, looks nicely. So if you want, especially the jumbo asparagus, which these are not, sometimes the jumbo asparagus need those fronds taken off, and sometimes the jumbo asparagus need to be peeled. So we peel them down to the stem end, all right? So this peel is very sharp. You have to be careful. It'll take too much of the asparagus stalk off. And just be mindful, when you peel them, they cook very quickly. So your choice on that. I'm not going to peel them because they're tender enough, soft enough. And check some of the other sections. You say, well, that's an easy way out, Mark, just cutting them off like that. Well, if you want, you can go through each one and snap where it has a natural break point where the woody part is. You can save those, but then you have to recut your asparagus. So asparagus tips would be smaller for a salad, and a whole bunch of asparagus, nice for a side vegetable. So that's, I guess, the asparagus story, more or less. Now let's tie that up, because you want to tie them up. You can put this in boiling water, but then the problem is they're swimming around. We have salt in the water. I have a quart of water. I'm going to put about half a teaspoon of salt because I want the sodium in the vegetable. It holds true for all vegetables. I want the sodium in the vegetable to remain in there, so I salt the water. Otherwise, the water will extract. It's cooking the vegetable, right? It's going to pull out whatever flavor is inside the vegetable, and if the water doesn't have salt or sodium in it, it leaches out, and the vegetable doesn't have flavor, savoriness. So I like to salt the water so that the sodium, whatever amount is in the asparagus or any vegetable, will be equalized, not be totally pulled out. And then if it is, then some of the salt in the water goes back into the vegetable and gives it a savory taste. We don't want salty. For saltiness sake, we want savory. So I always salt water. You don't have to salt water if you don't want to. I do to give it that extra savory flavor so the vegetable isn't completely bland. Other than that, you can serve them maybe with just lemon juice. So don't feel like you have to add any fat if you don't want to. But we're going to tie those up in two bunches. That was one bunch of asparagus. Then I broke into two sections. So let's stack those together. A little tiny one in there that I cut the bottom off. Oh, and feel free to join the chat and ask any questions you may have. If you have us up on the screen, if you minimize the screen, you'll see a little chat space on the right side. Feel free to ask vegetable questions while we're here doing vegetables today, right? So nice and tight. Oh, white asparagus, any white or red vegetable. There it is, goes into the water. White asparagus, any white or red vegetable. You want to add a little vinegar to the water. If you're cooking a red vegetable or a white vegetable, you cook them covered with a little vinegar to the water. The vinegar enhances the cauliflower, the white asparagus, what other white vegetables there may be. That's the two I can think of at the moment, cauliflower, white asparagus. The vinegar in the water maintains the color. Same with red beets that we've done, red cabbage, all those vegetables like to be covered with an acid to maintain the color. You want to keep the gases from escaping by keeping it covered so it maintains and enhances the color. I'm sure there's a scientific process for that. With green vegetables, no, we don't want the chlorophyll to discolor. We would never put an acid in a green vegetable, nor would we cover a green vegetable. And we can cover it if we want to get it to start come to a boil, but once it comes to a boil, the cover comes off. And then we want to allow vegetables to simmer. Don't boil asparagus. The fronds may break off. That'd be a bad thing, right? It's kind of embarrassing, all the tops have fallen off your asparagus. So it's in the simmering water. You can take a peek there. It's simmering along nicely by itself. Here's your white asparagus. Put those to the side. So while that's cooking nicely and simmering nicely, I'm going to bring my Polonaise mixture over here and have that ready. It's a very nice topping to use. I'm going to turn on my little skillet I have here. My asparagus is cooking. Like any cooking, you have any dinner you're making or a dish, make it simple, keep it simple. Do a roast and do maybe a saute or boil item, or a boiled item or a sauteed item. Do a roast. Avoid sauteing meat and sauteing vegetables and boiling, a third item because you're going to have lots of things to manipulate, which is fine. So many times you want to do one.
Would you also add the vinegar if you're steaming?
The question was, would you also add the vinegar if you're steaming white asparagus? Since it's not in liquid, steaming white asparagus, you can't enhance the white color by adding vinegar to the water. Some of that might evaporate, but it's when you submerge the white vegetable in the vinegar water or the red vegetable, does it increase the color? So probably not. Great question. We like those questions. So saute pan, a little skillet on there, a little splash of olive oil. I just want to toast up, add my breadcrumbs, my chopped Italian parsley, hard-boiled eggs, right? I had cold water, cold eggs came out of the refrigerator. Put it in cold water, brought it to a boil. And then I let it sit about 18 minutes in the hot water, turned off. Nice hard-boiled eggs. So that's the way I've done it, it works that way. So that's the Polonaise. It's a nice garnish for cauliflower, broccoli, and asparagus. So I like to use this colorful. I'm going to put just a little drizzle of a little drizzle of melted butter. Keep that warm. I'm going to add a little salt to that. And I have some freshly ground black pepper. Give it a little toss. Let's lower it down. It's a garnish you just want to reheat. It's already cooked, right? The eggs are already cooked. It's the breadcrumbs I earlier toasted. So that's going to sit there nice. We're going to warm it up. Let's see how the asparagus are doing. They have some time yet. We'll let those cook. But in the meantime, I had some that I prepared earlier. So I have some asparagus I prepared earlier. You can see you can see that once I took this, it's hot. I took them out of the water. I did plunge them in ice water. I did plunge the cooked asparagus in ice water earlier, just to firm them up. There's a big debate whether it stops cooking or not, but we call that shocking the vegetable. It just kind of stops that boiling process. And I pulled them out, and they were tender. I'm going to pour off that water. I kept it in my warming oven a little bit. So let's bring this over here. And my Polonaise, a mixture, very nice looking. Easy to make. This is an item that you can prepare this. The breadcrumbs and parsley and butter can be frozen very successfully. Let's check the asparagus here. It's firm but tender. Let's check with a more scientific method, use a chef's knife. I guess you could take the temperature of the asparagus, but but we want to see, we have a paring knife and we can pierce, see the thickest part of the stalk, and it's still tender but firm. We like that. Let that sit in there for a second. Let's bring my my ice water over here. And I'm going to serve it hot, so I may not have to shock it. So I'm not going to shock it. The one that I'm going to prepare, if I prepared a large amount for 6 people or 10 people, or I just wanted to serve it later on, just like I did here. I shocked it, and then I put a little liquid, a little saran wrap, kept it in a warming drawer. So I'm just going to lift that right out of my simmering water, cut the stream, adjust them somewhat so they look beautiful. And then I will sprinkle some of my polonaise on the top. Don't cover the fronds up. That's the beautiful part, right? Look, it's looking really nice. You can add some, diced red peppers if you want on the top of that. You can add a little toasted. I have some black sesame seeds. There's a little fat in there. You can put a little more butter. You can just put a little drizzle of olive oil. And I already put salt in there, but you may want to salt a little bit of the asparagus fronds. And let's bring it over here to the table. And we have a real nice asparagus polonaise, right? All the different varieties of asparagus, as I mentioned to you. So that's a beautiful vegetable and very tasty as well. So we'll put that aside. I think I might keep that warm. I'm going to drop it back in the oven. I'm going to move my polonaise out of the way because the next thing I'd like to do is to make some lentils. So I have brown lentils. I have a cup of lentils. Let me move some of this stuff out of the way here. I have a small pot. I'm going to cook a cup of lentils. A cup of lentils is definitely going to serve 3 to 4 people, a generous portion. I'm going to put on the stove. With lentils, they don't need to be soaked. You just buy them. You can buy the small Dupuy lentils, which are smaller than these, D-U-P-U-I. These are a common brown lentil. The Dupuy lentils are really tiny. They're green. It's nice if you want just a little different appearance because these kind of swell to 3 times the size, as you'll see. Or you can buy the beluga, as in beluga caviar, beluga lentils. They're very dark and black, and they're small. So they're, and then, well, I guess there's those 3 varieties that are very exciting to me. There's the dull, the red lentils, but they kind of lose their color. There's the yellow and the red lentils, the dull, right? Kana dal is a great preparation, Indian lentils. These will keep, and the color will be enhanced somewhat. Same with the Dupuy lentils, they keep that dark green color. And then the beluga lentils have a nice dark black color. So that's a nice presentation. It's a nice texture in your mouth when you're cooking different kinds of lentils. And make lentil soup, right? Potage Esau, right? The classic lentil soup. We're going to do a version of that today. I'm going to cut up a Mirepoix, saute that, and add my cooked lentils to that. And then season that with a little cumino or maybe garam masala, a little Indian flavor. And some, I might put a little diced tomato in there and a little salt and pepper. So with the lentils anyway, you have a cup of lentils, you need to rinse them. You don't need to soak lentils. You need to rinse them. So that's important because there could be agricultural dust and what have you in there. You want to look them over in case there's some debris in there, right? So I looked them over earlier, so there's no debris in there, but I did rinse them. So you can see what comes out of that, and depending, the country of origin, I usually wash all I soak my beans anyway, but I wash all my lentils. So having done that, I'll put them aside, the water anyway, but I'm going to go over to the stove now because I want to cook these lentils. So I have a cup of lentils that I'm going to put the lentils into a suitable size pot, right? This is a saucepan, we call it. Full-size saucepan. And unlike beans or pasta, where it's cooked in liquid and drained, the lentils are cooked in the liquid you're going to consume the lentils in. So we actually cook them in a broth or a flavored liquid, right, or a stock. So I have some vegetable stock. So I have the lentils that I've washed and rinsed and looked for any debris, what have you. Saucepan is 3 to 1. So I have 3 cups of liquid to 1 cup lentils. I'm going to pour that in. They're both cold. And I'm going to turn that on. And I'm not going to be too concerned about putting salt in the water. There's probably some sodium naturally in the stock, and we don't add salt when we make a stock or broth. Also be mindful when you're cooking lentils and beans, Great Northern, pinto beans, black-eyed peas, all those different beans. If you put salt in the water, it tends to toughen them. So we don't put salt in water when we cook beans. We season the beans afterwards. For example, New Year's Day, popular dish from the southern part of the U.S. is Hop and John. So that's red kidney beans, right, and rice. The kidney beans you soak, usually overnight, and the next day you can simmer them, strain out the water, simmer them, let the red kidney beans cook till tender, drain out the water, and then use them for whatever preparation you want. Put them back in a broth, or you can put them in your rice for Hop and John. So that comes to a boil, and we let it simmer about 20-25 minutes. So I'm going to push that to the back, let that cook back there, because the next thing I'm going to add is I'm going to prepare for that my Mirepoix, because I want to give the lentils a nice little flavor. I want to give the lentils a nice flavor. And I'm going to cut up a Mirepoix, and as you know, a Mirepoix is onions, carrots, and celery, and a Mirepoix usually is 50%, 50% onions, 25% celery, and 25% carrot. That's a Mirepoix. It's known as aromatics as well. It gives flavor to soups. It gives flavors to stocks and broths. It gives flavor to sautéed vegetables. It gives flavors to these lentils. So a Mirepoix is used in many preparations to enhance it. It's known as aromatics to give enhancement. So I'm going to cut up some Mirepoix today. I have onion, carrot, and celery. What I'm going to do is take my carrot, make sure I cut off a safe base. If you're going to cut up a vegetable and it's rolling around like that, you want to make sure that you have cut off a section so that it is secured properly. So that's what I've done. And I do that with all sides. And I'm grabbing with my hand because I want to use my cook's knife, my chef's knife, my French knife properly. One hand is the product holding hand, which I grab like a claw. And the other hand holds the knife, blade hold, right? That's important. Some people use the hammer hold, but we don't point or use your finger. That really hurts. Just holding like that hurts my finger. So you don't want to cut that way. It's unstable and dangerous, and you're going to build up lots of pain in your finger. So grab the knife by the blade hold. Don't be scared. Just put your thumb here, your index finger here, wrap your 3 fingers around the handle. And that's a nice way. That's called the blade hold, and a nice way to saw and cut your vegetables. That's a quick knife tip for you. So we're going to cut some small diced Mirepoix. I'm just cutting some nice thin planks. See that? Thin planks, lining my planks up. And maybe cut them lengthwise once because maybe I want a small dice. And then nice sawing motion. My hand is holding onto my product holding hand or guiding hand is guiding the knife. I'm holding onto the carrots. My knife holding hand has the knife. It stays on the cutting board. I'm cutting away from me. I'm cutting down and away, and I'm cutting them in nice small dice. A nice fluid motion. I only raise the knife high enough to cover and cut the vegetable. And these trim pieces I use for stock. or I compost them. That's carrot. Then I have my celery. I'm going to add a little celery mirepoix. Just see how my pan's doing when it gets too hot. Lower down the lentils. Same thing with the celery. Claw on top of the vegetable. You should be standing straight to the cutting board. Left hand, right hand, left hand, whatever the case may be. It should form an A, right? Should be comfortable. You should have your shoulder over. Use your shoulder to cut. Nice dicing motion. And then let's see, we want to cut some of this onion up. We don't need too much of it. I made a number of vertical slices. I'm going to make some horizontal slices. And I make a quarter of an onion. It's about right, small dice. So I have my little mirepoix, onions, carrots, and celery. I have my pan. I'm going to put some olive oil in the pan. Because nice with lentils is that they can take a little fat in them, but you don't have to use fat. But you know, as a famous chef once said, without fat and salt, we're not cooked. So I ascribe that philosophy, using some fat, using some salt. Certainly if you want to saute in fat, you can saute in stock or water. That works great too. So we use, this is extra virgin olive oil. Sometimes we'll cut that with pure olive oil to give it the flavor, but to cut back on the cost. Or you can buy pomace or pumice, which is the lowest grade used for frying in restaurants. Or you can buy the pure, which is the next high up grade. That's usually clear color. The pumice and the pure are a very light color. They have no bouquet of fragrance. They're a cooking medium. If you're going to cook with olive oil, buy virgin or extra virgin. It has a nice fruity flavor that you want. So the lentils are cooking very nicely. I have my mirepoix in there. I'm going to bring over some other items that I want to add to my lentils. Add a little diced tomato to my lentils. I have a little garam masala. Garam, it's G-A-R-A-M, garam masala, M-A-S-A-L-A. I guess, look at that all over the floor, but you know, someone has to clean the floor. The garam masala used as a spice in Indian cuisine. It's about 8 to 10 spices. People make it differently. It's really beautiful. You should buy some garam masala. It has cardamom in it, and some cinnamon in it, various spices. It has cumin in it, so you can use a little cumin if you like to give it that exotic flavor. When you're using spices in a soup, you want to add the spice in the first 25% of the cooking. A dried spice is different from an herb. If you're going to add a dried spice to something, realize that if it's going to go into a liquid, it should be added during the first 25% of the cooking process, so it'll finally open up and extract itself into the broth. If you're adding a fresh herb, that's always towards the last 25% of the cooking process, so it doesn't turn black and discolor. So just a little tip there regarding the cooking of using up spices. Now, also be careful, spices will scorch. Whole spices you can toast in a pan successfully. We do that all the time. If you have a ground spice like this garam masala, you want to add it while you want to add it to the mirepoix so that it doesn't burn and scorch, because it's finely ground. So lower that heat. You need to go buy some garam masala. You really have to. What a beautiful exotic flavor it has. A little freshly ground black pepper. I'm going to put a little salt in there. Give that a toss around. Take my wooden spoon out. The lentils are done now. That's nicely cooked. Cooked in 20 minutes. 20 minutes went by pretty fast. So you can see how that 1 cup of lentils increases. So it's almost a 3 to 1, and that was what the liquid was. So let's add our beautifully seasoned mirepoix. I think you want to cook better, you'll want to think of seasonality and also think of themes. So, your lentils, or you say carrots, how do I cook carrots? Orange juice, a little cinnamon and honey. Oh, I want to cook Brussels sprouts, bacon, butter, fat, and red pepper. So think of thematic flavors. Think in a way that combines the flavors of a part of a world, the profiles of different cuisines. So you say, oh, I'm not sure what to cook. Pick Thai, pick German, pick North African, Moroccan, and look at those spices that they use. And that can guide you and help you be very creative. You can't run out of things to do if you follow the flavors of a certain country, the flavor profiles. And that's what us cooks seek all the time is, what's the next flavor combination that I could put together? So now I have my lentils. I have my lentils that are cooked. That 1 cup of lentils, see how much it produces? Wowee. Now those, of course, are cooked a little earlier, so that's why they cook so quickly. I'm going to put some of those diced tomatoes on there, and then I'm just going to finish it off with a little sambal oelek. It's red pepper paste. But put a little on the top, and then of course I'll tell my guests that there's red pepper paste on there. And then it's just a matter of presenting that on a platter or a plate, and top it off with a few diced pineapples. So now you have a very attractive, very tasty, probably very healthy cooked lentil dish. Any questions while we're here preparing our 3rd recipe today? Happy to take your questions or comments. Now's the time. We have a chef live. This is not pre-recorded. This is live. So ask us questions. I'll be happy to answer them. So now's your chance to ask a chef a question you may have been thinking about for a while. So I'm going to keep those warm as well as they go into couscous. All right, I'm going to tidy up and get ready for my next dish. And I have to tell you, if you're going to be cooking and you enjoy cooking on occasion, once a week or every so often, mise en place, putting things in place is very important. You have to shop right and then prep right. So your mise en place, MEP, is important. Have your space set up for that, and that way cooking goes much easier.
Question, John. With the lentils, can you saute the tomatoes, as most of the health benefits of tomatoes are cooked?
Question was, can you saute the tomatoes prior to adding them to the dish, as cooked tomatoes have more of the lycopene or healthy benefits? You bet. If that will increase nutrition, I'm all for it. So do cook the tomatoes prior to. Cut them, dice them, saute them a little bit so the heat enhances that health benefit, and you could put them on top like I did raw. Great, excellent, excellent suggestion. Thank you for that. So now we're with couscous. So couscous made from wheat, right? They take wheat, it's usually cracked, and then they steam it. And it can be repeatedly steamed with more wheat. And as it's steamed and rolled, it starts to grow larger and larger. So this is actually very tiny couscous, right? This is the small stuff. It almost cooks instantly. It actually cooks by itself. There's really no cooking. You have to put it in boiling stock, and in 5 minutes it's done. So I'm going to get it on the stove for you right now so we can chat while it's cooking. So with the couscous, they sell instant couscous, but this is just your straightforward 1 cup of couscous. I have that pre-measured. I have my saucepan, and 1¼ cups of water. But you don't want water, you want to put a veg stock in there. You can use, there's some great products out there. There's Better Than Bouillon is a great product. It's a wet pack, a wet paste stock that I use. It's called Better Than Bouillon, refrigerated, it's in the supermarket. Who has time to make a broth or a stock, right? But with couscous, some countries steam the couscous over couscous. It's a tough word to say. Some countries, like in Sicily and in North Africa, Morocco, they steam the couscous in a couscousière. I said it that time, couscousière. So it could be steamed, and usually they steam the larger one because there's Israeli couscous and there's Lebanese couscous. Lebanese couscous is the size of almost a grape. Well, not close, between a pea and a grape. And Israeli couscous is the size of a pea. So that's a really unique palate feel with couscous. It's almost like a yellow cream of wheat, almost, the texture. You put a little more water in it, it can be softer. You put 1:1, it can be firmer and very fluffy. So depends what I'm serving it with. If I'm serving it with a braised lamb shank, then I might want to keep it drier, 1:1, so that when I put that beautiful broth from the lamb shank on it, it'll absorb that. Now, if I'm serving it as a side dish, sometimes when it's 1:1, it kind of is very loose. So it's brought to a boil, you actually turn it off. I'm going to mix in a tablespoon of butter. I kind of like butter. I did put some salt in there. I'm going to put a little pinch of black pepper. And as strange as it may seem, it's done. We just cover it. Sits there for 5 minutes. And then we'll add some nice toppings to that. But those are the types of couscous. It's the fine grain in the western part of Sicily and Trapani and the lower southwestern side that actually faces North Africa. They use this kind of couscous, the North African couscous, and they steam it in a couscousière over seafood broth. That western part of Sicily and North Africa, the Moorish influence, into Spain as well. Not so much couscous used in Spanish cuisine, but it's all through North Africa and, of course, in the Mideast, Syria, Israel, Palestine, Africa, North Africa, and Egypt. So it's steamed properly, and then it absorbs that beautiful flavor from the steaming seafood broth. Then it's ladled into a large dish, large platter, and the cooked seafood is ladled on it. It's really beautiful. Well, you can not use, but you can use diced chicken that you've roasted, had left over. You can have meat you can put into your couscous. You can saute fresh meat. You can put pieces of turkey. You can put whatever you want in there. Any meat that you've had. It's a great dish to must-go cuisine, right? Everything must go. In your refrigerator, have a few things you don't want to throw out, but you want to eat them. You don't know what to do with them. Couscous, or even a rice, is a good medium for that. I hate to throw out this pork roast. Well, I have this turkey leg. What do I do with half of it? So couscous is a good way, as a rice is, to add other food to that. So couscous, you can put anything in it. We're going to put a few things in it today, which are really nice. I'm going to add, I've toasted up some slivered almonds, because when I think of the couscous North Africa, I think of almonds. From the Mideast, I think of the dried dates or dried apricots. I think of citrus fruit, because if you think of their Moorish influence in North Africa, it was citrus fruits, and it was almonds and other nuts. So they brought those to Europe. So I have a zest. I'm going to put a little orange zest in my couscous. I have some diced apricot, and I have some toasted slivered almonds. So it gives it a nice, sweet, crunchy, citrusy, and nutty flavor. But maybe some heat too, right? So I have some red peppers, but these red peppers are actually sweet red peppers. You may have seen them in the store. They're really small. So I'm just going to julienne that up a little bit. Make some thin strips of that. I'm going to use it for garnish, along with my toasted sliver almonds, diced dried apricots, and some orange zest. Now I put salt and pepper, and I put a little butter in that. You can put olive oil, you can put no fat in it. So let's see what it looks like now. Well, lo and behold, it's done already. That 5 minutes went by fast, right? So there's the couscous, self-cooked. And so now I can add my apricots to that and some toasted almonds, keeping some out for garnish. Some of those sweet or hot peppers. You want to put habanero in there, give it a little flavor. Because this wheat dish, this couscous, it lends itself to any flavoring. You can put seafood, shrimp broth, a lobster broth with this, lobster stock. You can put anything you like to put in. You can add a vegetable soup to that. So maybe you have a very high quality canned vegetable soup. It would work very nice with that. You can also put meat in couscous. So we have some roast beef or meat. It works very nicely. So you see with the 1 1/4 parts, water to 1 1/4 cups of stock to 1 cup couscous, it stays together. So it's separate, but it isn't very fluffy and grainy. And that's a good thing because we want to serve this as a side dish. And of course, with couscous, they usually mound it so it has a nice appearance. And that's what we'll do as well. And of course, in North Africa, they may put harissa sauce. Harissa sauce is usually dried peppers, hot peppers that are pureed together. So I'm going to put that on the top. We're almost finished, so if you have any questions, now's a good time to get them in. And you've been holding back, don't hold back. So I'm going to garnish that up. We're going to have some nice food today on the set of Learn to Cook. Also remind you to like us on Facebook, Learn to Cook Online Facebook page, I think it is. And of course, you can follow us on Twitter as well, whatever that may be. That could also be Learn to Cook. And then there's some other, on the YouTube channel, we're also there. So take a peek at, we have 50 or so beautiful recipes that we've done. And I'd like you to join us and like us and participate and be a great cook. We're a community of cooks. We're here to help you cook better and feel good about your cooking skills and have fun at the same time. Eat some great food. So having said that, to wrap up this week's session, thank you for being here today. We appreciate you participating with us. And have a great day and bon appetit. Bye-bye.